You know, normally if you ask a parent who their favorite child is, they'll have a lot of difficulty giving you a straight answer. Maybe they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and perhaps they truly do love all of their children equally. Well, if you were to ask me that question, the answer would be very easy. Absolutely none of them. I mean, look at these freaks. They're all wrinkled up and stunted, and a bunch of them are starting to turn yellow. And I don't even know what this guy's issue is. He's just some sort of dwarf or something. I have truly never seen a more sorry collection of creeps and cretins than the 7 little gremlins that are living in that grow tent. And yeah, I said 7 and not 8, because remember we bought 8 seeds. Well, one of them never germinated and never popped out of the soil. So I dug it out. It felt real light and empty, so I ripped it open, and it was just a husk. And yeah, I can hear you now. Nick, aren't you the one who took care of them and is ultimately responsible for the sorry state that they're in? And, you know, that's fair to say. You could say that, sure. But I would like to defend myself by saying that I did everything right with the exception of one mistake that then had cascading effects. So before I tell you what that mistake was, we're going to briefly run through everything that I did right in this indoor growing process. So firstly, light. I had the seedlings under an IMV Sincere 100 watt LED grow light for 16 hours a day. The point of a grow light is just to mimic the sun, but it can't really do that perfectly, so you're going to have to supplement with some real sunlight. So every day I would bring my seedlings out for a small amount of time in real sunlight, starting at about 30 minutes and upping it to about 2 hours over time. And the way that I could tell the intensity of the light that the seedlings were experiencing under the grow light was by using this app Phototone, which measures the ppfd that your plant is experiencing. ppfd, you can just think of it like light intensity for the plant. So you just make a little diffuser out of printer paper. It looks like a little white headband that you put around your phone. Place your phone at the level of the plants with the front-facing camera up, and it'll give you a really good guess as to the ppfd your plant is experiencing. I started it out at 100, and over time I worked it up to about 350. I also had a small fan in the grow tent, and the reason that wind is important is if your plants don't experience any wind, they have a tendency of getting kind of floppy and weak. So that small fan gave us a little bit of wind that should have toughened up our plants a little bit. A lot of the time, while that fan was going, I would have a humidifier going in order to avoid drying out the leaves as well. In order to control temperature, I used some seedling heating mats that have a thermostat system in them, put the probe into the pot, and once the temperature drops below your prescribed temperature, the heating mats turn on, and then once it goes above your prescribed temperature, the heating mats turn off. During the day, I would keep them at around 80, and then at night, I would drop that down to about 70. I wanted them to experience some temperature variation, but nothing too crazy yet. And then finally, I bought a lion's mane mushroom grow kit. It's just a colonized bag of sawdust with all the lion's mane mycelium in it. And the point of that was to kind of act like this thing called an exhale bag, which a lot of grow tent growers that grow weed use. It's basically just a block of mycelium that breathes in oxygen and breathes out CO2. And the idea is that plants do the opposite. They breathe in CO2 and breathe out oxygen. So there would be kind of a symbiotic relationship there in terms of the gas exchange. It was too warm in there, so after a couple days, it just kind of turned green and moldy. So I ripped it out. Experiment failed. So now that we've talked about everything that I did that I was happy with, we can talk about that one mistake that I made that led us to this horrible place. And that is using Happy Frog potting soil as our seedling starting mix. I should have bought explicitly seedling starting mix. The difference is this potting soil is meant for full-grown plants and not seedlings, which means it has much higher levels of nutrients like nitrogen, which then burned our plants. I posted pictures of my plants to the Facebook groups, and the general consensus is that the potting soil that I used burned my plants. So I panicked, and I took evasive maneuvers by washing out all of my pots with about a gallon of water each, which you don't want to do. Overwatering is a big issue as well. It can cause yellowing of the leaves, so it's not a surprise that right now we're seeing a lot of yellowing in our leaves. But I believed that that was the best way to avoid any further burning. Did it work? I have no idea. Our leaves are still looking pretty wrinkled, but now on top of that, we're getting that classic yellowing from the overwatering. At the time, I believed that that was our best bet, and who knows, maybe that did end up saving the plants. But the good news is this. The general consensus online also was that if you transplant them outside, they should make a full recovery within a couple of weeks. Oh, and as for watering and fertilization, my original plan was just to water them with regular dechlorinated water, a little bit of root, and a little bit of seaweed. But once I saw how burnt my leaves were, I decided I don't want to put anything else in this soil and risk burning them even more. So I only ended up doing that once, and all that probably got washed out by the 1 gallon deluge that I blasted them with. This was my first year ever trying to grow indoors, so I'm not really surprised that it ended up being a disaster. Now we just have to hope that once we transplant them outside and they get into a more natural soil, that they make a full recovery and get over this burning. Today is April 28th, and later in the day, I'm going to transplant our seedlings outside. So we'll just have to see how they do. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys in a week or two with good news.